your very first video clip of Business Studies revision. Can I please remind you, however, that this is not the only bit of revision you have to do. Not as well as listening to me do this, you've also got to make sure that you use your books, you use your past papers to make sure you know exactly what it is you're talking about. Today, we're going to do marketing. Okay, so first of all, we need to know exactly what is marketing. Marketing is all about finding out what the customers want and providing it. In order to find out what the customers want, you need to do some market research. And there are two different types of market research that we've taught you about that you need to know for your exam. The first one we call primary research, or we call it field research. This is when you actually go out and collect the information yourself. So the business goes out, they collect the information themselves for a specific purpose. Big example of this would be going out and doing questionnaires. What you need to know for the exam is what are the advantages. You only need to know about two. The big advantages of doing field research, first of all, is that it's totally relevant. You get exactly what you need to know because you are designing the questions. On top of that, it's also going to be very much in date. Alright, it's exactly what they need to know and it's what they need to know now. Disadvantages of field research, however, are that it's expensive because you've got to pay people to go out and collect the primary research for you. And secondly, it's very time consuming. Again, because the information isn't already available. So you've got to spend time telling people what they need to collect, waiting for them to go and collect it, and then analysing the results when they come back in. The second type of market research that a business can do is called desk research. We also know it as secondary research. This is research that has already been collected by somebody else for a different purpose. An example of that might be government statistics, looking at newspaper articles, reading business reports. All of those are examples of secondary research. And there are advantages of using this type of research. Firstly, it's quicker. It's already collected. It's usually cheaper. Many people will go and find this information on the internet. However, it might be out of date. The research might have been done 10 years ago. Therefore not relevant if you're looking at bringing out a new product in today's market. Also, it might not be relevant. It might be irrelevant because you might want to know about the teenage market. The secondary research you're reading is written about the older generation. The business has to weigh up the advantages and disadvantages of both. But don't forget, if you are doing a telephone survey, you're sat at a desk, but because you are answering the questions, it's classed as primary field research. Just because you're sat at a desk does not make it desk research. This has to be research that someone else has collected. If you put a survey monkey, a questionnaire up on Survey Monkey, and you're collecting that information, it is primary. Only when you're using someone else's information is it desk. Okay, next you need to know all about market segmentation. This is what a business does when it divides up the target market into smaller groups called segments, so it can aim their different products at different market segments. The reason that they do this is so that they're going to meet the needs of these types of people. Okay, so there are lots of different ways they can divide up the market. The easy one is gender. So we have some products that are aimed at females, perfume, and we have some products that are aimed at males. And by aiming them at just one gender type, they're more likely to meet the needs of that type of person. In this case, if they're male or female. So you've got gender, you've also got income. We have products that are aimed at high income earners, and we have products that are aimed at lower income earners. We have also socio-economic. And this relates to their occupation. So you've got people that have got highly paid jobs, and you've got people who are very skilled, professional workers, and you've got people who have got less skilled or low skilled jobs. Newspapers is a really good example of socio-economic groupings and market segmentation. We tend to stereotype. The people reading the Financial Times are probably the professional people, not the people who are reading the Sun. Okay, we've also got age. Some products will be aimed at teenagers, some products will be aimed at older people. Alright, we've also got lifestyle. Alright, you might have some people that own a motorhome and a caravan and they like to go out caravanning. You'll have other people who prefer an 18s to 30s holiday. Again, difference in lifestyle. You change your product depending on the market segment, the target market that you are aiming your product at. Some businesses won't use market segmentation at all. They will just aim their product at the mass market. And they will try and get everybody who's interested in that drink or that product or that service to buy into it and to buy it. Alternatively, we've got what's called a niche market. And that's where a business will just aim its product at a particular small market segment. So an example of that might be Saga Holidays. They aim their holidays at the over 55s. They don't then try and aim their products at younger people, as opposed to Thompson Holidays possibly, that will try and aim their products to Spain and everybody. Okay, there is also another one. We could have geographic. So what you might find that you aim some of your products in some countries and not in others. You're going to sell more umbrellas in Wales than you might do in the south of Spain where they get more sunshine. But that is what market segmentation is. It allows the business to better meet the needs of its customers because it channels it down and just aims it at particular types of people. Right, so once a business has decided and found out from the customers and found out from its market research exactly what type of new product businesses want, they then start to design it and they have to think about how they're going to persuade customers to actually go out and buy it. Okay, all of that comes as a package. It's known as the marketing mix. You also know it as the 4 Ps. Also could be called marketing strategies. Okay, and the 4 Ps is made up of 4 words beginning with P. The first one is product. The second one is price. Then we have promotion. And lastly, we've got place, or the location that the product is sold. And it's important that a business make sure that they combine these together so that they can successfully sell as many products as they possibly can to potential customers. Now you need to know for your exam information about each of those 4 Ps, and the first one we're going to take is product. Okay, now lots of businesses will have a product range, and that's where they will sell different products at different target markets. So they'll aim their different products at different market segments. Okay? And within product, they've got to consider the packaging, the design of the product, any features that it might have. Think about your mobile phones. They've got lots of different features now. They can video, they can take pictures, so it might have internet access. So all the different features it's going to have, maybe the colours it's going to have, and all those need to be taken into consideration when they're designing the product. Okay? Also, what you need to know for the exam is why packaging is important. And there's basically several reasons why packaging is important. The first one is that it protects the product. Okay? If it's not wrapped up properly, then obviously by the time the product gets to the consumer, it's going to be damaged. If the product is damaged, the consumer is going to complain, customer satisfaction will be low, they won't go and buy that product again, so sales fall and profits for that business will fall. Also very costly, because the business is going to have to replace the damaged product. Secondly, if it's eye-catching, it can also help them to market the product, to promote it. If it looks appealing on the shelf, because of the packaging, people are going to buy that one instead of the competition that's next to it. So it also has the function of helping to promote the product. Thirdly, it gives information. It tells you how many calories are in the product, whether there's any ingredients that people might be allergic to. That can help to sell it as well, and it's information that in some cases, by law, they need to put on it. Okay, next, as part of product, you have to be aware of the product life cycle. This is the stages that a product will go through during its lifespan before it goes into decline and disappears off the market. And as you can see, in the exam, you need to be familiar with what the product life cycle looks like. Now, at the start, in the development stage, there are going to be no sales. That's because the product hasn't been released on the market, you are just doing the research and development, the prototypes, you're checking it, you haven't actually released it. So up until this point, sales are zero, but costs are going to be high because you're already paying for the research and development costs. Then the product will be released into the market. We call that introduction, sometimes it's called launch. This stage, sales are going to be slow. The product has only just come on the market, not everybody knows about it, some people are beginning to try it. And word of mouth through heavy promotion, more and more people will try it over time, and then as sales start to grow rapidly, it will move into the growth stage. Now here, the business may start to make a profit because it's starting to finish paying all of the costs from the development and the introduction stage. Word of mouth, repeat business. People are now comfortable with the product, it's gone mass market, a lot of people have heard about it, you can get it, you can buy it in lots of places, and sales are rising rapidly. Then it will get to the point where it will go into the maturity stage. At this point, sales are still increasing, but at a smaller amount. You can see that the slope is flatter. Okay, so they are growing but at a smaller pace, and when you get to the point where the sales are at their highest, that is called the saturation, the point of saturation. Here, everybody who wants to buy the product is buying it. Okay, during maturity, the aim will be to try and get people to switch brands. So you might always drink Nescafe coffee. The idea is they will try and use promotion and other tools in order to get you to switch to a different make of coffee, because everybody who drinks coffee is doing so. Okay? Now, what a business will try and do, this is where your profit is going to be at the highest. So businesses don't want to lose the profit, they don't want to get out of maturity and end up in decline, so they will develop extension strategies in order to try and get the sales to actually go up again. And there are several extension strategies that a business could use. For instance, they could sell their product in a different country that they're not already in. All right, that automatically would give them a bigger target market and therefore should increase their sales, and their product life cycle should go up that way. Okay, they can also change their marketing mix in other ways. Maybe have a heavy promotional campaign, run competitions. Have you forgotten how good they taste, like Kellogg's did many years ago? They may change the product slightly. Think about the iPads, think about your iPhones. How many times have they been slightly changed and people have gone out and bought the new improved version? Eventually, however, the product is going to become out of date. Competition are going to bring out something better, and the product will start to go into decline. Okay? At this point, sales are falling. The business hopefully has got other products available that it's starting to release on the market in order to get higher profits, because the profits from this product are going down. Okay? You need to make sure you know how to label that for the exam. Okay, before I move on to the next P, there are just two terms I want to make sure that you are familiar with. The first one is product differentiation. This is what a business will do to aim to make its product stand out from the competition. It needs to make its product different from the competition. It will try and give itself a USP. That stands for unique selling point. And if it's got one of those, the customer has a reason to always buy that product and not the competition. Secondly, you may get a question in the exam on branding. All right? Some businesses find branding very important because it gives their business, their products, an identity. All right? You'd be all very familiar with the big yellow M for McDonald's, the Nike tick that they use. And they put that, just like Richard Branson has, all his products are the Virgin brand. And the reason they do this is so that it's instantly recognisable. It doesn't matter what product he's selling, you will go, oh, I'll buy that one because I've flown with Virgin before, so their trains must be quite good. All right? And that is the advantage, is that they can advertise the whole brand, which can sometimes be cheaper than advertising all of the different individual products. It means you recognise it, you'll assume it will have the same quality as all of their other types of products, and therefore you're more likely to go and buy that brand. However, I must point out that there is a disadvantage of having all of your products using the same brand, and that is if the quality of one of your products goes down, customers may assume that the quality of all your other products is also not very good, and therefore the reputation of one may ruin the reputation of all of your other products. There is also called own brand. Now this is the name given to the products that are the supermarket brands. So for instance, where you've got Tesco Value, Tesco Finest, they are beans for instance, they are the Tesco own brand. The label, the brand, is owned by the supermarket or by that retailer. The next P that we're going to move on to is price. Now, before a business decides what price it's going to charge, there are certain factors it needs to take into consideration. The first one is the cost. There's no point charging a price to customers that doesn't actually cover the cost that it costs the business to make in the first place, because then they're not going to make any profit. So the first thing they've got to consider is how much it costs for them to provide that product in the first place. The second thing they have to look at is the competition. What do the competition charge? If they charge a price that's far too high, everybody will go to the competition and they'll get no sales. Lastly, they need to consider the customer. How much does the customer want to pay for the product? How much are they willing to pay for the product? Because the customer has to feel that they're getting value for money. Once it's decided and considered those factors, it will then use a pricing strategy to actually determine what price to charge. And there are several pricing strategies that you need to be aware of for your exam. The first one is price skimming. This is when you charge a higher price than the competition. Usually it's done if your product is unique and if you're the first person bringing it out on the market. So if you're the first person to have had the touchscreen phone, first business, then you would charge a higher price. People will buy it because it's got that feature that none other products have actually got. So you can get away with charging a higher price. By charging a higher price, you appeal to less people, only the higher income earners. However, you make more profit on each one you actually sell. Another pricing strategy you might go to is almost the opposite, penetration pricing. That's when you charge a lower price than the competition, get a lot more sales because a lot more people can afford the product. However, you make less money, less profit on each one. Also, businesses have to be careful because if you charge a lower price than the competition, sometimes customers will perceive that as a lower quality. Next, you can charge competitive pricing. All right, and that's when you charge the same as the competition. So you don't compete on price, you have to find another way of competing. Again, you will need a USP, maybe you've got better customer service, better warranty. You've got to have some reason as to why your customers will buy from you as opposed to the other people that are charging exactly the same price. Then you move into some other pricing strategies. You could have discrimination. This is when you charge a different price for different types of customers, different target markets. An example of this would be the train service. If you want to go and get a train from Haverfordwest to London, all right, before 9 o'clock and on a Friday, you'll pay a lot more for your ticket than if you go later on in the day. And that's because the people going before 9 o'clock possibly need to get to work, they need to pay that ticket, they need to be on that train, therefore they're willing to pay a higher price. Okay, so what businesses will do is they'll use price discrimination. They'll charge a different price to a different type of customer for exactly the same product. You've also got what's called loss leaders. And this is when you charge a price that actually only just about meets the cost, or maybe doesn't even meet the cost at all. Okay, it's a really low price. Now usually they'll do this to get your interest. Okay, but it usually comes with where you have to buy something else in order to use the product. Your perfect example is printers. You can go out to your local supermarket and get a very cheap printer, but as soon as you start to buy the cartridge for it, it's extremely expensive. Alright, so the loss leader would be the printer itself, because they might even be making their cost price on that. Okay, but they'll make all of their profit on the other bits that you have to have in order to use this product in the first place. Another pricing strategy you may have heard about is psychological pricing, and that's where psychologically the customer thinks they're getting more. So for instance, you charge $4.99 because that sounds better than charging £5. The third P that we need to look at is promotion, and that is where you inform and persuade people to buy your product. Okay, and there are various different methods that a business can use for promotion. The main one that you'll all remember is advertising. And there are different kinds of advertising that the examiner will expect you to be aware of. Obviously, there's TV, very expensive, but reaches a massive audience. Only really suitable for the really large businesses that have got the money to be able to afford to produce a TV advert and to actually pay the TV company to show it. Okay? After TV, you might have local radio. These are quite good because obviously it's local. If you're trying to sell your product locally, you're a local shop for instance, then advertising on the local radio is very relevant because it's just aiming at your target market, people that live in that area. You've also got local newspaper, and don't forget it's really, really important in the exam that you specify the word local, because if you write newspaper, they probably won't give you the mark. Okay, so local newspaper is a good one because again it's cheaper than something like the television. All right, it's just the local area, lots of people tend to read it, and therefore it's aimed at your target market. Alright, so you've got different forms of advertising. You've got cinema, you've got billboards. Alright, they might get graffitied, ripped down. Okay, lots of people will see them as they're driving past them. Leaflets being put through people's doors. All of those are forms of advertising. The second type of promotion is one that we call sales promotion. Now these are good because these are things that encourage the consumer to buy now in case the offer has been taken away next week. So examples of that might be bog off, alright, buy one get one free, or it might be 3 for the price of 2. Anything that persuades us to hurry up and buy it now. Also, you need to be aware of direct marketing, and that is things like your direct mail, otherwise known to us as possibly junk marketing. That's where a database is held of their customers and then they try and target the advertising, the emails, the text messages you might get on your phone. They all get targeted then to the type of person that they know uses that product or uses that service. When a business is deciding what type of promotion it's going to use, it needs to consider several factors. It needs to consider the cost. It needs to consider, does the business have the money it needs in order to fund these advertising costs? It needs to look at who their target market is. All right, is it relevant to advertise nationally if the only people buying your product are going to be in the local area? So that's what a business will have to consider when deciding which of these types of promotion it's going to use. Okay, and the final P is place. This is the location that you are going to put your product so that the consumers can buy it. Okay, and there are several channels of distribution that a business can choose to use. The first one, and the smallest one, is this producer direct consumer. This might be an example of a small farm shop where the farmer at the side of the road sells his product directly to the customer. Okay, that's the smallest channel and therefore takes the less time from the product to get from the producer to the consumer. The second type is where you sell the product from the producer, so that could be Cadbury's with their chocolate, and it leaves the factory, the producer, it goes to a retailer like Tesco, and then they sell it on to the consumer. Okay, and then lastly we can have producer, so that would be Cadbury's, who sell it to a wholesaler. An example of one would be Booker's. Then it goes to a retailer, that could be a small corner shop in Neyland, and then you've got the consumer who goes into the shop in Neyland to buy it. Now, what a business has to consider is really two things. The first one is the time it takes for their product to get to the consumer. And secondly, they need to consider the fact that the price is going to change as it goes longer and longer. So let's say, for instance, this is a chocolate bar for a company and it costs them 30p to make the chocolate bar. They want to make 10 pence profit on it, so therefore they sell it to the consumer for 40p. Then you get to this channel of distribution. Again, it costs them 30p to make the chocolate bar. They want to make 10 pence on it, so they charge 40p to the retailer. The retailer also wants to make some profit on it, so therefore they sell it, the chocolate bar, for 50p. Alternatively, on the last channel of distribution, again, the producer costs him 30p to make it, he wants to make 10p, so goes to the wholesaler for 40p. They want to make a profit, so they charge 50p to the retailer. The retailer also wants to make a profit, so he sells it to the consumer for 60p. So the longer the channel of distribution, the longer it takes for the consumer to get the product, which might be an issue if it's perishable, but secondly, the more expensive it's probably going to end up for the consumer, because each of these people want to make a profit. And that's why if you go to the small independent corner shop, you will probably pay more for the chocolate bar than if you were to go directly, let's say, to Tesco. Okay, they buy in bulk, and therefore they will look to get the products cheaper as well, don't forget. Okay, now the only two things you might be unfamiliar with there is the function of a wholesaler and the function of a retailer. Now a wholesaler will buy direct from the producer, but they'll buy in big bulk. Their job is to break it down so the retailer can buy boxes of chocolate bars as opposed to pallets of it. Okay? Because obviously they don't want pallets in their shop. Alright? They don't need that much chocolate. Okay? A retailer on the other hand will have a different function. They will also break it down. They'll buy it in bulk and they'll break it down so that customers can buy one individual item. Okay, because I don't want 50 million chocolate bars in my house. Alright, so they will break it down so we only have to buy one, but they also provide additional functions, so they might provide guidance and support on purchasing the product. Alright, they'll provide the personal service. There'll be somebody in the shop I'll be able to go and ask if I want information on the product. Okay, so those are the kind of things, the functions that the wholesaler and the retailer do. They buy in bulk and then they break down the bulk so the retailer can buy smaller amounts, and the retailer, known to us as the shops, alright, they will break it down so we can buy individual items. They will offer us personal guidance and support when we're buying the product and provide a personal service. In addition to these, you also need to be familiar with obviously selling on the internet. Many businesses now distribute their products on the internet. That's called e-commerce. Very useful because obviously the internet is available 24/7 and the prices usually tend to be lower. That's because these businesses don't have the same overhead costs that a shop would have. The staff, the rent, the wages of the staff, the electricity costs, etc. So you tend to find that the products will be cheaper on the internet, and obviously they can shop 24/7. Also, there's door-to-door selling. That's when people might go individually to your door and they might try and encourage you to purchase products that they are selling. We've also got mail order catalogues. That's where you might flick through a catalogue and then you might choose different products from a catalogue that you like. So they're all different ways in which you would have to consider selling the product. Okay, the very last thing I need to make you aware of is marketing constraints. These are things that stop a business from exploiting its customers in order to make more sales. So in other words, they're not allowed to lie about their product in order to encourage us to go and buy their product, and therefore they get more sales and profits. And there are several marketing constraints that exist in the UK. The first one is regulation, alright? And we've got an organisation called the ASA, which is also called the Advertising Standards Authority. And it is their job to keep an eye on what gets printed as adverts, what gets displayed on billboards, and what gets put on the television in form of adverts as well. Their motto is everything needs to be legal, decent, honest and truthful. And customers are encouraged to contact them if they think there is an advert that isn't quite true. And therefore they will then ask that business to remove it. Okay? The second type of constraint that exists is things like trading standards. Okay, they are run by the local council and they will go out and make sure again that the products being sold are sold fit for purpose, that they're not lying about their products, that they're not counterfeits, and they're not forges, they're not fakes. You've also got what's called the Trade Descriptions Act. So you've got law. Alright, now the Trade Descriptions Act makes it illegal to describe your product in a way that is incorrect. So you can't turn around and say that the shoes or this coat is waterproof and you won't get wet if the first time you go and wear it you get drenched, okay, and you get soaking wet underneath. Alright, if the shoes are leather shoes, then they have to be leather shoes. They can't pretend it's something that it isn't. Okay. There are also other laws, not just the Trade Descriptions Act. You've got the Weights and Measures Law, for instance, that basically says if you go into a pub and you order a pint of beer, then you need to be given a pint of beer. They can't just give you 3/4 of a pint as well. The same with food, that it gets weighed, and then on the back of the packaging it tells you how much that product weighs. That's how much it needs to be. Okay? Alternatively, there is a fourth type, and that is pressure groups. And you may have heard of them before. These are people who put pressure on members of Parliament, for instance, to get what they want. Now, good examples of these are things like Greenpeace, all right? Because they might not want things to happen as far as the environment is concerned. They might not want that motorway to be built, and they will protest and put pressure on MPs so that those roads don't happen. They'll put pressure on businesses so that they change the way that they operate. And that's to make sure that us as customers don't get exploited, we're not lied to in order to try and get us to buy their product.